Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, we'll talk about cybersecurity in light of the recent hacks of Democratic Party emails. And we'll hear about the use of forest biomass to help fuel power stations. Those stories next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. The Democratic National Convention continues in Philadelphia with increasing signs that those supporting Bernie Sanders are ready to get behind the official nominee, Hillary Clinton. That's how former Phoenix Mayor and State Attorney General Terry Goddard sees it, both in and out of the convention hall.
I spent a fair amount trying to find the gate to get into this convention. I ended up talking to and walking through a lot of the Bernie demonstrators that are still hardcore. They're very disappointed with the results of the primaries, and they want to keep fighting. Well, I encourage them on that. I think this convention has done a lot to encourage them, just to say, be part of the process. Be there and make sure that your message and your voice is heard. Raul Grijalva is certainly the best expresser of that. Somebody who was a strong Bernie supporter, somebody I think first in Congress to support Senator Sanders. And to our delegation, and then again to the Progressive Caucus, he was saying, look, this is an important cause. The cause goes on. The passions that have been arose throughout the country, in Arizona certainly, in large numbers, go on, because people who've never been involved in the process now are, and have heard their voice has been heard.
Programming note, tomorrow night at 10, we will have post-convention analysis in studio and live from Philadelphia right here on Arizona Horizon. Well, Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump is taking headlines away from the Democratic convention this week by appearing to ask Russian intelligence agencies to hack Democrat Hillary Clinton's emails in order to find 30,000 messages missing from a personal server that Clinton used to conduct official business as Secretary of State. Joining us now to help put some perspective on all this is John Iannarelli, and he is a retired FBI special agent and former head of FBI cyber investigations in Arizona. John Iannarelli, good to have you here. What exactly happened to these Democratic Party emails?
Well, it looks like some entity, it might have been a rogue state, it could have been a private hacker, but somebody got a hold of these emails that were sent out over a period of time, and now they're sharing them for the purpose it appears to be to embarrass the Democratic Party.
How do you get a hold of these things? How do you hack something like this?
Not very difficult to do at all. Anything that we have these days, whether it's encrypted or not, there is software out there that you can hack into computer systems. I may not necessarily go into your computer, but maybe I'm going to go into the server, the service that you're getting your email from, and look at the information from there. Democratic Party, it's pretty easy because it's going to be marked Democratic Party.
So I was going to say, what kind of if I'm a hacker, what kind of information do I need if I want to hack X, Y, and Z?
If you want to hack into a particular person's account, really nothing more than a little social engineering. Maybe I'm going to go to your LinkedIn, I'm going to get some information so that will help me decide how I'm going to target the account. People aren't very complex when they put passwords together, and that's the real danger. More times than not, it's that simple. Other times it's malware, like in the Sony hack. People think it was this real convoluted, difficult thing from South Korea. It was nothing more than a scam. Somebody clicked on a link. Next thing you know, North Korea got into that email.
My goodness. Okay, so we know someone has done this. How difficult to track down who did it?
Well, the FBI, which is the primary agency that deals with these types of hacks, they're very good. They've got some really sharp people who work computer crimes. The problem is, even if you track them down, are they in a country that we have reciprocity with? We can't convict them over here in the United States unless they bring them back here, which means we'd need to get that country to cooperate.
And you're talking about countries here. How often do countries hack into other countries?
Well, the individual hackers may be in another country, but just as frequently, we see foreign countries, both our enemies and our friends. There's a lot of spying that goes on in the world, and it's not uncommon that even a friendly country will be probing our systems to see what's out there and what they can find.
If you catch France hacking into American government systems or something along these lines, I mean, what do they say? What's done diplomatically? That seems like an embarrassing situation.
Well, it can be, and that's why the government, the State Department, they get involved. There's all sorts of communications go back and forth, but in the world of politics, a lot of that is how the world operates. The real danger is the countries like Iran, North Korea, etc., those that want to do us harm, that are hacking into our systems. That's what we have to protect against.
What about Russia? Is Russia a big player when it comes to hacking?
Russia and the former Russian mob that has now moved out of violence more into cybercrime, there is a ton of money to be made. And it's a lot easier to rob a bank with a computer than with a gun.
Would it surprise you if A, they found out that this was Russian influenced, and B, you found out that it was Russian mob influenced?
It would not surprise me at all, but just as likely, it might very well be China, or it could be any other country that's out there, because we are hacked and attempted hacks by all such countries.
How often do we hack other countries?
Realistically, the U.S. government has policies against doing those sort of things, and I would tell you from the FBI side, there would be serious punishment for anybody engaged. But there are private hackers, private citizens that do this all the time.
I seem to remember the U.S. and maybe Israel hacking into Iran's nuclear program to kind of throw the whole thing haywire a while back. So this thing does happen. I mean, it sounds like it's just one spy versus spy thing happening out there.
That is where the wars are going to be fought in the future. It's very easy to go out and get a gun, but how much damage can you really do? Now, here in Arizona, if I'm going to shut down the electricity during the summer where you don't have air conditioning, access to gasoline, your banking accounts, that can do some real damage. That's what these foreign countries that are our adversaries are trying to do.
So they're trying to do this. Are we up to speed in terms of cybersecurity?
There's always room for improvement. We have some very talented people doing this, but technology changes so quickly, so exponentially, that as soon as we find one answer, there's another problem.
I was going to ask about this. I mean, if you work on a case, it seems to me by the time you're done working on the case, the method of hacking and the method of technology, these things could have changed exponentially.
Absolutely. And so what the FBI is always doing is bringing on fresh talent, young recruits who are fresh on the cyber scene, out of college with their degrees, who we can throw at these sort of problems. We also contract out to a lot of the big companies that are the 10-gallon brains in the cyber world, that we can have them look at malware and look at computer code so that the agents with guns can go out on the street and do the job.
Is that a tough sell? I mean, we all know what kind of salaries these kids and young people can make in Silicon Valley and elsewhere. That seems like that's pretty rough.
Well, I will tell you, no one joins the FBI for the money or the federal government in general. They join the FBI because it's a job unlike anything else, where you're going to see things people will never get an opportunity to see. A lot of people who come to us forego those big salaries because they know I've got a front row seat to the world that nobody else is ever going to have.
You mentioned in the past that the next wars will be very much cyber oriented. I mean, are we prepared for that? I mentioned whether or not we have cybersecurity. That's one thing. Are we prepared in case all these systems shut down, the cloud goes away, if you will?
I believe we are. The FBI has a private partnership with the public sector referred to as InfraGard. All different entities involving critical infrastructure. They meet on a regular basis. Here in Arizona, we have nearly 2,000 members of InfraGard from all over the state, where we get together, we discuss the issues, we share what we see, and likewise, we prepare to keep ourselves safe.
Before you go, real quickly, Donald Trump saying he hopes Russia hacks, will do another hack and release the Clinton emails, hopes Russia penetrates U.S. servers. I mean, there's some are saying this is tantamount to treason. Is it tantamount at least to a threat to U.S. security?
Well, as a former FBI agent, as an attorney, I could tell you it doesn't even come close to the elements of a crime. But considering both the Democrats and Republicans have enough issues when it comes to emails these days, I suggest it's a subject they should probably just stay away from throwing stones.
Yeah, and real quickly, if the he wants whoever's hacking to give this information to the FBI. If the FBI received information from people illegally hacking into American corporations, organizations, whatever, what does the FBI do?
We would take that information, the FBI would work with it and try to track down who is doing what for what. That happens all the time. People with information, sources, come to the FBI, and that's how we catch some of these hackers out there.
So the information would not be poo-pooed just because it came from perhaps a hacker doing something illegally?
No, actually, hackers doing things illegally, or any criminal doing something illegally, is a way law enforcement gets information.
Very good. Great information. Good to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Great to be here. Thank you for your time.
Get the inside scoop on what's happening at Arizona PBS. Become an insider. You'll receive weekly updates on the most anticipated upcoming programs and events. Get the insider delivered to your email inbox. Visit azpbs.org to sign up today.
Tonight's edition of Arizona Sustainability looks at how Salt River Project will be doing a test burn of forest biomass to produce electricity at the Coronado Generating Station in far eastern Arizona. Here now is SRP Water Supply Director Bruce Hallen. Good to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Using forest debris as supplemental fuel. Explain, please.
Well, we have a challenge here within the state of Arizona to get our forests thinned. Not only is it in Arizona, but it's throughout the western United States. Our forests are overgrown, and we've seen these large catastrophic wildfires. The impact that it's having for the Salt River Project is on our watershed. And we have a 13,000 square mile watershed that most of the water that originates in the reservoirs where we collect that water, most of that comes from snowmelt in those forested lands. And so from our perspective, we need a healthy forest to ensure a healthy watershed. These catastrophic wildfires have an impact on sedimentation, sediment loadings into our reservoirs, having an impact on water quality, and then there are obvious damages just to the ecosystems and the local communities. And so in order to get these forests thinned and restored, we need forest products industry. We need someone to come in and thin those forests. Well, unfortunately, there's a significant amount of material within those forests that is low value biomass material. It doesn't have a very large market for it. If you look at an acre of forested land in Arizona where you should have maybe 20 to 30 trees per acre, if it was more of a natural forest, now we have over 1,000 trees per acre. And those 1,000 trees, 3/4 of them are small spindly trees where there's not a market. And so what we're evaluating is the opportunity to, can we take some of this low value material and process it and chip it and do a test burn at our Coronado Generating Station and actually, burn some biomass at a coal facility.
Now, when you say forest debris, what does that entail? When I think of forest debris, I think stuff all over the ground that you're kicking around as you're hiking.
It's limbs, it's pine needles, it's the smaller stems, it's all that smaller material. The estimate is there's about 25 tons of material per acre, and of that 25 tons of woody material, 12 tons per acre is that low value biomass.
And the idea now is to burn this biomass, use it as fuel at a coal-fired plant, not to replace coal to a certain degree, but to help with the process, correct?
It's really just to help with the process, essentially help with accelerating the treatments within the forested land and within the watershed. What we're looking at now is a test burn no greater than 5% of the total fuel load within the power plant itself.
How long will that test burn go on?
20 days. We're going to do 10 days at about 2% of the fuel load and another 10 days at about 5%. We're going to be monitoring impacts on the facility itself, also monitoring air quality. And so we want to get a real understanding of, is this doable and, is it something that maybe we could move forward with?
I was going to say, the impact on the machinery would be interesting to find out because it could perhaps harm some machinery, could it not?
It could, and it's very important. Those coal fire plants are critical to our power resources. We need those coal fire plants to meet demand here in the valley for our end users, our power customers, and so we don't want to put that plant at risk. But what we do want to do is evaluate and see if there is an opportunity at a low level to utilize some of this biomass to help accelerate treatments, because we also have a stewardship obligation on that watershed too.
And I know that there is concern as well that producing and burning the biomass to make for fuel maybe not quite as efficient as other ways of getting fuel in there, correct?
It isn't a fuel of choice, no. It's more expensive than coal, it's more expensive than natural gas and other fuels, and the BTUs aren't as high as coal. So it's going to take a little bit more material to burn when it comes to the actual weight of that material versus coal.
Is that why we haven't seen much of this in the past?
Part of it, I think one of the reasons why you haven't seen much of this in the past is we have had alternative fuel sources. Secondly, no one's really evaluated this, at least within Arizona, the opportunity to co-fire such a small quantity of biomass within a coal fire plant. And so this is really a first, at least within Arizona, at a large plant such as Coronado Generating Station.
And this debris, in the past, what became of this stuff? Was it just burned? I mean, did it actually do harm to the atmosphere?
You know, at this point, if we don't get those forests thinned, essentially all that material will burn. And it's just not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, because of the significance of the fuel load that we have within that forest. And then that releases all of that carbon and all that other material in the atmosphere. And we're also concerned too that if we don't find alternative uses for this biomass, the last thing we want to do is really start piling up all this biomass within the forest and then burning it.
Right.
So at least at the coal fire plant we have, you know, some air quality equipment there.
All right, let's talk cost here. This sounds like, I mean, we've heard about forest restoration efforts in the past, and it's always been a great idea to find someone, pay them to take this stuff out, and the stuff they take out can be used for X, Y, and Z. Unfortunately, as you mentioned, the stuff they take out is low value, and in some cases almost no value. So with that in mind, who pays for something like this?
At this point, we're working together to get a better understanding of, you know, what are the actual costs associated with this material. Some of the estimates are anywhere from $30 to $40 per ton to actually move this biomass, so to transport it. So transportation costs are a significant amount of the actual costs associated with moving this material. Ultimately, from our perspective, there are a variety of organizations and agencies that benefit from forest restoration and to ensure that those forests are healthy. And so we're looking to partner with a variety of agencies and other organizations as part of following this test burn to help hopefully fund and hopefully partner together with us to get this biomass out of the forest.
It sounds to me like this is the cost would suggest that the federal government would probably have to get involved in some way, shape, or form.
I think ultimately the federal government will have to get involved when it comes to restoration. You know, initially through this Forest Restoration Initiative, as you mentioned, the thought was the private sector. The private sector can step up and move this material. Well, I think what we're finding here over the last few years, that the economics are such that we're going to have to get some support from the federal government and other agencies.
And very quickly, I know environmentalists are concerned. Anytime you thin the forest, they worry about those trucks, they worry about vehicles, paving new roads, making new paths, and just disrupting the environment. A concern?
Well, that's why they have this collaborative, this Forest Restoration Initiative collaborative. The environmental groups are represented there. They put together prescriptions. They have actually programs, and they actually have, shall we say, treatments and limits on what they can and can't do in the forest. And so we have what I would say is full support from a variety of organizations and agencies that historically maybe have battled when it comes to actually getting in and thinning the forest.
Well, the whole idea sounds fascinating and very encouraging. Good to have you here. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
A historic building in Phoenix not only managed to avoid being demolished to make way for a modern structure, but also managed to put its history in the driver's seat. Producer Shauna Fisher has the story.
What a difference a little TLC and elbow grease can make. The CP Stevens building sat vacant for years before Sean Connolly's business partner, Ken Cook, decided to bring this old building back to life.
In 2012, it was in complete disrepair. The roof was exposed, the trusses, some were down to the ground. It just, it was an eyesore of the community. But the thing that Ken saw in it was that it had great bones.
The original idea was to turn the building into rental space, but Connolly thought otherwise, and DeSoto Central Market was born.
DeSoto Central Market is a food hall at its core.
Inside the market, you can find a seafood bar with oysters flown in daily, Southern food, a burger joint, and a juice and salad bar.
The market itself was named after the DeSoto car company, which was a brand of Chrysler. The building itself was a dealership, the C.P. Stevens DeSoto dealership, built in 1928.
Part of Cook and Connolly's vision was to save what they could of the building. Demolishing it was out of the question. That meant meticulously mapping out how to meld the old with the new.
The trusses are all original with the exception of the steel bracing and tension rods. Those are put in for support, and now the roof's as strong as ever. Where the back of the bar, the wall back there, was actually the original wall to the salesman's office. So where you see the doors and mirrored windows, those were the sales offices.
To add to the challenge, Cook wanted to make the building LEED certified, a tall order making the market one of Arizona's only buildings to be both federally certified historic and environmentally friendly. It was painstaking work that cost a lot of money and time, but it was a labor of love for Connolly, who grew up in Troy, Michigan, and soon found his family's business had intersected with his own.
My family and my history is in cars, but my passion and what I've been involved in the food industry has taken me here, but it's all ultimately coming together to where putting food and my family's car relationship together, and it's kind of a cool thing.
There are nods to the former DeSoto car dealership wherever you look, some tongue-in-cheek like the giant front-end car grill that greets you when you walk in, to the original service records hanging upstairs on the walls of the mezzanine.
Basically, they're manila folders with the person's name, where they're from, what car they had, and then a record of, they got an oil change for 5 cents, on such and such date. And it's all done in perfect cursive too, which we don't really see much of these days.
Connolly says they found bits of history all over the building, even under it.
We unearthed the former house that used to be on the site previous to the DeSoto car dealership. And we saw records that show it was built in 1905, but underneath the bar we were digging, and all of a sudden these bricks and pieces of wood started showing up as we were digging them.
For Connolly and Cook, finding restaurants and chefs who would honor the building's history was important too. Chef Stephen Jones heads up the Anchor restaurant, the Larder, and the Delta.
It's in reference to something that we do a lot of. We do a lot of fermentation, we do a lot of pickling, and we do a lot of preservation. So that's in reference to the Larder. And the Delta, we wanted to keep our southern roots, so that's what that came from. And more specifically on the Delta, it has to do with the produce that grows up and down the Delta.
Jones's food has soul to it, but don't call it soul food.
We focus on a lot of local products, but the food itself is like a lot of it's all turn of the century, old Civil War type slave food. We really want to focus on that, and that's why when people eat the food, they're like, oh, it has soul, it has there's a story behind it. You can taste it, and that's what it's about.
Jones is a perfect fit for DeSoto. He would walk by the abandoned building for years, hoping somebody would save it, and he's only too honored to be a part of the team that did just that.
You hear the ghosts when as I like to tell people that late nights when I'm cooking or really early in the mornings I'll be in here cooking, so you feel it, and it's cool to be able to cook a food with the past and the history, with the story, and the building has the same thing. It's really cool.
As for Connolly and Cook, the two men who pay homage to the past are looking towards the future, adding more restaurants and even a small grocer to the market.
It's not an easy undertaking trying to fit this new concept in a city that's still in its rebirth, if you will. There's a lot of things we've had to figure out in trying to adapt to downtown, and it's the rising of Phoenix as well. But I still get excited every day coming into work. I look forward to the future of Phoenix and where it's going.
The DeSoto Central Market is located on the corner of Central and Roosevelt in downtown Phoenix. Thursday on Arizona Horizon, we will have analysis of the Democratic National Convention with political consultants here in studio and live via satellite from Philadelphia. That's on the next Arizona Horizon. That's it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you.